But he actually talked about Cantonese opera. He actually demonstrated the scholars' movement versus the warriors' movement, because there are four major types of characters in Cantonese opera. The Man Sang, which is translated as scholars, but actually basically the intellectual, and then the Mo Sang, which is the martial character, which is translated as warriors, and then the funny characters, the comic characters, the clown, translated as clown, and of course the fourth is the female lead. I love this. I love this Chinese phrase, "Fa Dan," flowery egg. That's the female lead in Cantonese opera. They're flowery eggs. So with a lot of connotations to that, but which I'm not going to go into. But still, Bruce Lee was demonstrating, especially the movement of the warriors, the Wu Sen, the martial arts character, the way they move, exaggerating. That, if you look at his martial arts film, if his kung fu film, there's an exaggeration in Bruce Lee's movement. Not only when he fights, but when he walks, when he talks, when he's just sitting there. There's an exaggeration to him, even when he's sitting there, because he's so full of motion, so full of action, full of power, waiting to burst out. So even when he was sitting down, there is something moving inside of him. And I think that, to me, was the Cantonese opera instilled in him. Because after he was born in San Francisco, while his father was performing Cantonese opera in San Francisco, he went back to Hong Kong, and he grew up on the backstage of the Cantonese opera and on the set of Hong Kong movies, because his father acted in movies. And he appeared on Cantonese opera stage, often playing extra, or even like child characters. And of course, in movies, he started acting again in a very tender age. And by age 10, he actually was a star. He was the leading actor in The Kid, the title character. And it's a very, very interesting character. And you can tell that in the two clips that you saw just now, he knew acting. He was natural to the camera. And most important about these two clips that you saw, especially the clip of the funny one that he was making fun of the teacher, he knew how to make love to the camera. We all know that we study film. Good actors, natural actors, maybe they may be acting with someone else, but they are actually all the while they're acting to the camera. They're making love to the camera. They're blinking to the camera. Seducing the camera. Of course, they're not exactly seducing the camera. They're not exactly making love to the camera. They are seducing and making love to the audience behind the camera. So Bruce Lee had this instinctive star quality in him that he will make love to the camera. Even in this social realist film, The Kid. But he's also a very accomplished actor and a team player. It's very, very interesting that he's at once a very good actor, but also a good team player. At once he is I think he's an instinctive star, but also trained as an actor who worked with other actors. So I'm going to play another clip. It should be clip number, let me see. Okay, it should be, clip number 4 from the movie A Son is Born.
你跟我入嚟嚇，跟我入嚟，我俾嘢你食啊嚇！嗱，你睇下佢哋個個都係冇爸爸媽媽嘅細路哥嚟嘅，而且佢哋仲盲嗰雙眼睛響人嘅，你知唔知啊？一個人應該用自己嘅本事去揾食㗎嘛。嗱，你睇下佢哋個個雖然係盲嘅啫喎，但係佢哋個個都好勤力去學做功夫，去學揾食嘅本事啊嘛。
Okay, this is from the film His Son is Born. So, I apologize for not having subtitles of this film, but basically he plays an orphan. Once again, an orphan. While he was in Hong Kong during his child star era, he played three major types of character. Orphan or a poor boy who has to suffer a lot. And the second is a juvenile delinquent. And sometimes one and two overlap. And the third is a teenager. I'm sure many of you have seen the clip of him dancing the cha-cha in one of the guest starring roles, but which I'm not going to play because it's readily available on YouTube. So he mostly plays all three characters. In an orphan, he's actually an overlap of, I would say, all three of these characters in the orphan, his last Hong Kong film. So it's before he left for America. But still, he was an orphan, and the scene started with him he had hidden from the police who was looking for him because he had snatched food from another kid. And the woman actually was a teacher, and she was asking him, "Why are you running away from the police?" And of course he said, "Because I snatched food." And the woman asked, "Why?" And he said, "Because I'm hungry. Because I'm hungry." And you can see he was acting all the time. I mean, even though you don't understand what he's speaking about, the reason that I don't think it's you need to have subtitles to appreciate that clip, because you can see his acting without hearing what he's saying. There are emotions on his face, and the emotions all over his body. Even though it was pretty much a close-up that cut off in his shoulder. But he was basically acting with his entire body. And the way he responds, the way he said things, he will lower his head, raise his head a little bit, and there's sadness in his eye, the facial expression. But even more impressive for me was after they went into the room, and there was a whole room of blind girls. It's just doing, because there was actually a school for blind girls. And one of the blind girls was actually the Bruce Lee character's son. That moment, in that close-up of the woman talking to Bruce Lee, it was the woman talking. Bruce Lee was not talking at all. And unfortunately, this clip that I found, that moment was cut short, because I've seen a longer version of that moment when he was just listening. But in most of the child actors of the 1950s in Hong Kong, they were just being cute. They play a film of being cute, or when they play a suffering character, they play sad. But here, at a moment when the woman was talking, if you notice Bruce Lee, he was not saying any lines, but he was reacting. He was not lazy. He knew the camera was on. He knew that he is required, or may not even be required, but he knew that for his character to touch people, he needed to respond to what the older woman was saying. So this is a moment when we can see that he was a consummate actor at the tender age of 12 or 13. He was an accomplished actor. I mean, because he grew up in the backstage of the Cantonese Opera and on the set of Hong Kong film. And he has acting blood running inside of him because his father was an accomplished actor. But so even before he went to America to study, he was actually an accomplished actor, a great artist, who knew all the rules of acting. A perfect example of him reacting or not speaking to the woman in the clip I just showed of A Son is Born. He knew all the rules, but as we all know, with art, you gotta know the rule to break the rule. And when Bruce Lee came back in 1970 to start making kung fu films, he broke all the rules of acting. There's no subtlety to his acting. There's no Stanislavski's method acting to the way he acts. But he could do Stanislavski if he wanted to, because he was doing that when he was 12. So the wonderful thing about looking at his older films and comparing to his acting in the early 70s action film was that you can tell that he has discarded all the things that he had accomplished, or the acting style that he had accomplished, and all the skills that he had learned to create a new style of acting. So in other words, you gotta know the rules to break the rules. I mean, I teach film in Hong Kong, and there's a lot of times Hong Kong students in the Hong Kong Academy of Performing Arts ask me, why do I need to learn or get a degree in film? If we go into the film industry, we will have to work from the very low. We don't need a film degree, But of course, I always tell them, you got to know the rule to break the rule. Like Picasso, he was a great naturalist painter, but then he broke all the rules of naturalist painting and invented abstract art. So you got to know the rule to break the rule, and that's exactly what Bruce Lee did. And the way he broke the rules of acting, rewrote acting, not just for Hong Kong cinema, but for world cinema, and had an impact on the rest of the world, gradually. And he did not meant to do it. I mean, he was just making a film for Hong Kong audience. I mean, he did not know that. When he fights, he has this animalistic run. Just like, I remember at the time, there were critics who say, what kind of acting is this? And the interesting thing when we look at his early films, because most of them are social realist films, talking about the social problems of the Hong Kong people in specific and the Chinese people in general. Because one of the interesting things about Hong Kong cinema, and one of the reasons why Hong Kong cinema was so successful is something I told everyone when I talk about Hong Kong cinema all over the world, is because Hong Kong film has an audience much bigger than its population because of Chinese diaspora. Hong Kong film, even starting in the 1950s, 40s, and the 50s, and the 60s, 70s, 80s, been showing all over the world. First to the ethnic Chinese all over the world, especially in Southeast Asia, in America, in San Francisco, in the Great Star Theater, but also in Taiwan, in the Philippines, and even in other parts of the world. So Hong Kong film had always had this an audience that's much bigger than its population, and there's one reason for Hong Kong film to become what it is and what it was and what it is. But I think Bruce Lee, one of the reasons that Bruce Lee was such a phenomenon was because he has this wisdom and this instinct, or this wisdom in that instinct, to realize he's connecting to a lot of people, not just to the Hong Kong audience. Even when he was a kid of 10 years old, when he was the star of the kid, and the way he worked with other actors. The scene that I showed you of him working with that older woman, the actress Bai Yin, who is an accomplished actor. And one reason that Bruce Lee was able to develop his acting skill was he made about 20 films in Hong Kong before he came to America. And about half of them, and more than half of them, are with a group of actors who are associated with a company called 中旅电影公司, Union Film. It was actually a film company that changed the history of Hong Kong cinema. And Hong Kong cinema would not be what it is today without the establishment of Union Film in 1952. And it was actually a film formed by a group of actors who want to save Hong Kong cinema at the time because they think that Hong Kong cinema was corrupted, Hong Kong cinema was terrible, Hong Kong cinema was money-oriented, which, thinking back, I actually disagree with these great actors because I think Hong Kong cinema, one way or another, will improve anyway. But history was history. And in the early 1950s, Union Film formed out of an ideal to improve the quality of Hong Kong cinema and, in general, the quality of Chinese cinema by forming Union Film. And these are a bunch of very accomplished actors who actually turned their wartime experience into the work, into making mostly social realist film to reflect on and comment on the social conditions, the unfairness, the injustice of the social conditions of Hong Kong at the time, and with the ideal, with the mission to improve Hong Kong cinema, and in the process, improving the Hong Kong people's education level and the way and the sense of responsibility and the morality. Because in Chinese culture, there's always this Confucian belief of 满夷在道, 文以在道, which is translated is the text carrying a moral image. And so Chinese people have always looked at art as something very, very important. But anyway, because we're running out of time, so I'm going to wrap up very quickly. Because I think it's very, very important to at least make the statement that if you look at Bruce Lee, you can see that his embodiment of the integration of East and West, old and new, North and South. East and West, very obvious. I mean, he was at once Cantonese opera, a traditional Chinese family, but also Cha-Cha champion of Hong Kong. It is also old and West. It was always in connection, in communication with older people, and expressing a lot of the teachings that the older the people was trying to convey, but also of course the tradition of China and the modernity of Hong Kong at the time, but also North and South, the Peking opera moves, the somersault. So this is what makes Hong Kong film special, and this is also what makes Bruce Lee so special. And I think another reason that Bruce Lee was so unique was that he's a product of his time. Just like Cheng Sin mentioned earlier, that if we look at his entire life, his entire career, his art, you can see that he's very much a product of his time, of changing China, of changing Hong Kong, and a changing world. The details of which I don't have time to go into, but still, I can say that he was a product of his time. He had all the many different things happening in the world, all converge and on him, on his personality, on his art, and on his legacy. And he, being someone of immense wisdom and great capacity for art, he was able to project that product of his time into the future, projecting Bruce Lee into a great actor, into a legend, into a culture, into a myth, into a part of human history. Thank you.